morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you who are based in Singapore, you might understand what I'm trying to say next, which is a couple months ago, the hottest ticket in town was Taylor Swift, which is coming next year. But from the looks of it in the crowd today, it looks like this is a pretty hot ticket as well. So good to see a large crowd here this morning. I'm really privileged to have these three CEOs representing different parts of the financial industry joining us this morning, and I've got some questions for them, but I know you have oftentimes harder questions for the panelists. So please add your questions to the QR code that you saw up there, and let's get your questions up to these panelists as well. So we'll start off talking first about what I think a lot of people have been talking about at the conference, but also in just normal conversation, and that is technology, specifically artificial intelligence or generative AI, and how that's going to transform our industries and our business opportunities. So why don't I pose that question first to Dato Khairussaleh at the very end here, and have you in the hot seat with how you see AI changing the industry and your business.
Thanks, Maura, and thank you for having me in this forum. We've been talking a lot about AI, right? You talk about Maybank, first, for example. We have even put in our revised purpose statement last year. We are a values-driven platform powered by bionic workforce that humanizes financial services. So that part about bionic workforce, yeah, there are two prongs to that, right? We will continue to upskill our people, but at the same time, we want to also assist our people with a tool for them to be able to do their job much more efficiently. And of course, one of the tools, obviously, is AI, right? We talk about banking. We are in banking. I'm in banking. We don't think that banking is going to be, disappear from the world, right? But the way that banking is going to be done is certainly evolving and rapidly because of AI. Now, all this is because of, the focus about customer at the end of the day. Yeah, the days when product designers are the ones who put up the menu for customers to choose will probably be over very soon, right? And the days where customers have got the free flow of ability to ask for what they want, right? And these are driven by three parts. One is about simplification of offerings. Secondly, it's about personalization of offerings. And third is about democratizing the offering, right? So we are seeing all these things happening. And again, it's all about customer, yeah? And customer is driving all this. But at the same time, I think we have heard, President mention as well, end of the day, it will not remove people from still delivering the service, right? End of the day, the human touch is still necessary. AI is just accelerating how this is being delivered, driven by the needs of customer on the three premises: simplification, personalization, as well as democratization. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Anil, so keeping the customer front and center is what Dato just spoke about. Is that the same as what you see as well in terms of how AI is providing opportunities in the business?
It absolutely is. And AI, in my view, is going to have a profound impact, not only on customers, but our distributor partners who offer financial advice, as well as ask customers to go through the entire onboarding process. It's going to have a profound impact on our people. And I think there are significant opportunities in terms of process automation where AI is going to play a significant role. But as we kind of think about opportunities, we also have to think about some of the challenges. At Prudential, what we are trying to do is find the right balance between human touch and digital touch. And what I mean by that is, if you look at an average Asian consumer, the average Asian consumer still appreciates the human touch. And when you are making a decision for your retirement savings or for your child's education, they prefer a human financial advisor. Now, you can obviously use technology, you can obviously use AI to make that advice a lot more seamless, a lot more powerful. But I think finding that right balance between human touch and digital touch, I think is going to be critical, at least in the way we are thinking about employing AI. And just to kind of give you one example of that, in Malaysia, we are right now piloting with our call center representatives who address customer queries, the adoption of AI where the cycle time reduction in terms of the call representatives querying or trying to address a customer question goes down from 4 minutes to 30 seconds. So imagine the impact of that as we start to scale some of these from a pilot to more a commercial setup, and then kind of take that same example and then apply it to the various hundreds of processes that we have. The impact can be quite profound. Now let's talk about challenges. And President Thurman spoke to it very eloquently. I think we need to put our moral compass right at the forefront as we kind of think about employing AI. There are impacts on sustainability. There are impacts on how you kind of think about employing ethical standards. And I think we simply have to be very conscious about it when we come to using these large language models that, as I said, will have a profound impact on customers, on distributors, as well as our employees.
Mary Ellen, pardon me, you've also highlighted some of the challenges with using AI. Why don't we start there with you and then kind of maybe end on where you see some opportunities with the work you're doing at Women's World Banking.
Great, yes, and again, the president touched on inclusion as being a real opportunity of AI, and I couldn't agree more. In fact, I'd say, technology, digitization has been only good for the prospects for inclusion, particularly for women. But where the challenge comes in is if you don't have really good, accurate data about women, you're really missing that opportunity. If, say, you're developing an algorithm for credit scoring that really only draws from a pool that is largely men, that points to indicators that have to do with men, and we see this, I'd say, this particular thing most with the digital lenders that we're working with, they're much more likely to reject a creditworthy woman because she doesn't meet the criteria. We are also seeing some real problems with fairness because that creditworthy woman might get into or sneak under the algorithm, but she typically has greater collateral requirements, higher interest rates, smaller loans, shorter tenors. So there's a real opportunity to be tapping underserved, untapped markets here that will be lost. And there's just sort of a shame to see that opportunity passed. But as I say, the ones who are getting it right and who are thinking about gender disaggregated data, fully a third of the countries around the world do not require reporting of or collecting of, let alone using gender disaggregated data for making credit decisions or any other business decisions in the financial system. That could be a huge boon when combined with AI.
So you've kind of touched on similar points, which is the data in itself and the language models that are being used, the large language models. Are you then suggesting that it's governments and regulators that should really be taking the lead in setting up the framework in which AI should be used in your industries? Because from a lot of the coverage that we've been doing, or things that we've been seeing, there's lots of discussion around it, but there hasn't really seemed to be much momentum around coming up and creating any kind of framework that industry and businesses can use. I'll leave it open to whoever would like to take that one first.
I think the regulators have to get ahead of that. I think it's only natural for regulators to think both of the opportunities as well as the concerns, and providing solid regulatory framework is going to be fundamental to the success of AI. And I think there are different markets like Singapore or like Hong Kong who are already engaging in creating those sandboxes so that the companies can experiment and look at how they want to kind of take the ideation or their creativity from one step to the next. And I think that's going to be very important. We spoke about adhering to ethical standards, be it transparency, be it ensuring that you are, at the end of the day, creating value for customers. There's an element of fairness that Mary Ellen spoke about. I think these have to necessarily feature into how the regulatory landscape governing AI is going to move forward.
I just want to give a different perspective, right? I totally agree, Anil, in terms of the need for regulators and government to step up. But at the same time, we at the corporate side, we also need to do our part of it, right? In terms of coming up with the policy and framework in terms of making sure that, AI is being used for the right reason and not for the wrong reason. For us, for example, we potentially can guess that a lot of our employees are doing something on AI on the ground. Right? We have got 43,800 people, working, and I'm sure a lot of them are already applying AI. But do we know for what reasons? Is it for productive purposes, right? Are they doing something not right, for example? So we, at the enterprise level, we need to, come up with some sort of policy and framework to be able to make sure that this thing is not being abused. That's one part. The second part is about infrastructure, right? AI depends on technology and data, and data sits everywhere. We have been around for 63 years, and I can say even today we are struggling still with data. So how do we then link, this data from different source systems, let alone trying to link with external data, right? So apart from those things that are legacy to do, I think people like Maybank and many other corporates, we also have to do our part in making sure that things are progress consistently.
I think I would echo. There's a role for both the financial sector and regulators, but I do think regulators, certainly in the gender disaggregated data space, making sure that that really is a requirement, looking at how women use financial services as distinctly from men is not only, a good regulatory requirement, but really can open up a huge, huge business. But we're also looking at consumer protection, concerns about data privacy. Those concerns, we're finding women feel even more strongly than men, and it's becoming more and more of a barrier for them to join the formal system. So I think the regulators do need to take a lead role, particularly on consumer protection and privacy laws. But the regulators are working in response to the private sector, which is part of the reason we love working in Southeast Asia so much, because here we're really seeing so many examples with large banks, large digital wallets. We're not just concerned with small microfinance institutions, small loans, who are really seeing a business opportunity in serving the and underbanked population. And the regulators are paying attention to that.
I could go on. I'm sure we could go on for the half an hour talking about AI and regulators. But let's pivot, because we do have other topics to cover. And I want to take a step back a little bit. And obviously, technology and AI is one of the priorities that you're looking at for your business. But if I could ask you to kind of list what are the top 3 priorities that your organization or you're focusing on at the moment for your business, if you can just share that with the audience. Anil, why don't I start with you?
So we recently unveiled our new strategy, and the strength, I believe, of our strategy is in its simplicity. We think about operating in 4 geographies: Greater China, ASEAN, India, and Africa. 3 simple strategic pillars, starting with customer, technology-powered distribution, and health. And 3 enablers that cuts across all the 3 strategic pillars of people, data and technology, and our wealth and investment capabilities. And I think that in many ways then fashions the value creation for all our stakeholders, starting with customers, our people, our shareholders, and importantly, the communities that we work and live in. And towards that, data and technology is going to be the underpinning force of ensuring that we are able to execute on the strategic priorities. And towards that, we have committed to $1 billion of investments between now and the next 3 to 5 years for us to ensure that we are not only modernizing and upscaling our technology, but also ensuring that we are making things and thinking from a lens of a customer, making things easier and much more accessible to our customers. So customer obviously is going to be at the center of it. I think we spoke about how technology can truly unleash the power of financial advice and the impact it can have on distributors and how they can bring these services to our customers. And health, and we again spoke about the impact that technology or AI could potentially have on health, and how companies like Prudential embed artificial intelligence when we think about underwriting customers or when we think about paying claims.
Thank you. Dato Khairussaleh?
I'll just highlight the three things first and I can elaborate. The first one is about enhancing customer centricity. The second part is how do we do that, which is, applying the agile way of working. The third part is a bit more abstract in the sense that we are big on sustainability. We are big on Islamic finance, for example, and we are trying to embed these two and try to come up what we call the new way of ethical banking concept, which is related to our purpose statement again of values-driven platform, right? So I come back to the first one, which is on customer centricity. We're trying to apply where if there's no value for a customer, don't do it, right? But if there is value for customer, do it fast. So
Don't
then.
waste time.
Sorry.
Don't waste time.
Yeah, right. And of course, then technology comes in, data comes in, but the concept of always thinking about customer value, and fast. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to, energize for people to doing it, because I still come back to the point where customer is key now. It's about winning customer, it's about maintaining them, it's about, serving them across all solutions that we have in the group. Now, the second part is about agility, right? So because we want to do fast, we want to make sure that we have value, the ways of working also needs to change, right? In terms of always listening to what the customer has to say, doing ethnographic research, right? Doing POC and being able to test and fail, being able to escalate things fast, right? So we have started this last year, and there is this good momentum in terms of what we see our staff being able to do again with the pivot of trying to serve the customers better, faster, more efficiently. Now, the third part is I am most excited about in Maybank, right? Because it's about, again, the values-driven purpose statement that we have. So we would like to think ourselves as not just a leader in getting numbers from a sustainability point of view, so now it's become a numbers game, right? How big, can you deliver from a sustainability finance? But also leadership in thought as well, right? From a sustainability point of view. Now, I mentioned just now from an Islamic finance point of view, we are now by asset number 5 biggest in the world, right? But having done this business over like 30 years, we have learned that the values and the Sharia principles, for example, can converge with the values of sustainability, right? So, for example, don't do harm, don't oppress people, be fair, be equitable, right? Preserve the environment, right? These are all values under Sharia, that we have seen before, and now are just being amplified under sustainability. So what we're trying to do is to combine these two and come up with a set of values that we want our people to believe in, right? To do their job, and based on these things. And I come back to the point where humanizing financial services will be the purpose, with the mission for us, right? Again, do things for good. So more and more, I just give you an example of a product that we have introduced based on this example. Back in August, we introduced a credit card. We call it My Impact Credit Card. On the sustainability front, we are able to get our card owners, users, to know how much carbon footprint they create when they spend at a certain merchant. At the same time, they were able to then donate certain amount of money to offset that carbon, that footprint that they've created. right? We have got 4 organizations now can help do that. So that's a bit on sustainability. Then we combine that with the Sharia principles. We're saying that this card, in terms of being fair, not oppressive, will not have any late charge fees, right? Because of the value of not oppressing people who are not able to pay, right? So this card now, to me, is an example of how we are living these values that we're converging between sustainability and Sharia principles, and hopefully we can introduce more solutions along this line. So, I'm quite excited about this journey, and again, we are thinking of how to do things and try to differentiate ourselves from other corporations.
You raise a few points, but I'll touch on in just a moment. But let me just get to Mary Ellen first to hear what your sort of top 2 or 3 priorities are.
Yep. So as you've no doubt deduced, Women's World Banking is committed to women's financial independence and empowerment. And so I think our number 1 priority as an organization is really holding on to the quite impressive gains that we made coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. The rapid digitization of financial services, of government-to-person relief payments coming out of COVID brought hundreds of millions of women into the formal financial system for the first time. And so we're really dedicated to making sure that the financial service providers that they're working with continue to offer products that are relevant to their lives, that are designed with women in mind, so that they stay, that they don't leave those accounts dormant, that they don't, once having been included, now leave that behind. Secondly, about a dozen years ago, we added an asset management business alongside our NGO, and we've just seen tremendous impact differences that we're able to make as an investor, as a board member, where we're driving very explicitly, very intentionally, more women as leaders and staff within the organization, and then seeing almost as a, day follows night kind of thing, that with more women in the organization, you're finding more outreach to women clients. And so we've seen from inception to point of exit in our first fund, we had an 86% increase in women clients served by our portfolio companies, and we saw an increase in women in leadership positions where we were. And then I'd say our third priority, which kind of cuts across those other 2 business lines, is the recognition that women are on the front lines of climate change, and they are the ones much more likely to either be displaced or be left behind by a spouse who is displaced because of a drought or a flood and livelihood having to go elsewhere. And if they don't have financial services, they are not going to have the resilience to climate change that they need. So it's given really a new focus to our work in women's financial resilience.
Well, let me bring up climate change, because that fits in with the sustainability theme that Dato broke up earlier. Tell me more about how you see that as a core part of sort of your aims, and how you are working with your partner institutions to kind of address that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're looking from across the whole platform of services. If that woman is left behind by a spouse who's been displaced, she needs digital payments to take a remittance. A remittance payment from that spouse or from other members of the family in the most efficient possible way. She needs to be able to understand how she can do that through her cell phone. So it's not just a question of having access to the technology, but being confident in using it. Access to insurance is absolutely woeful amongst the population that we're working with. So there are a number of partners who are really, really committed to designing products that are priced right, that are understood by the population, whether it be crop insurance or extreme heat insurance, or recognizing the insurance needs of populations who are so much on the front line. Just a quick story, we have been doing some wonderful work with Bank of Baroda, one of the largest public sector banks in India. We developed a savings product with them that if a family or a woman or a man, really either, made 6 savings deposits over a defined period of time that they had committed to, they would have access to a emergency credit line of about $120. And we were rolling this out in one of the most rural parts of Uttar Pradesh. There were terrible floods this time last year, and we saw the families who had access to this product. So they'd been saving, but they also had access to the emergency credit line. Had all the kids stayed in school, all the members of the family continued to eat 3 meals a day, and they were able to plant much faster than the other families. We also saw word of mouth for the product go through the roof with their neighbors wanting to have access to this product as well.
Speaking of insurance, Anil, can you step in here and where do you see climate change as an opportunity to kind of serve customers better? How are you looking at that in terms of your product mix?
As an asset owner and as an asset manager, and we have 2 lines of businesses, insurance and asset management, across the markets that we work in across Asia and Africa, I think we have an opportunity to contribute to the sustainability efforts that we are seeing that's kind of gathering momentum across the world. And just one tangible example of that is the recent launch of the Climate Action ETF in Singapore. It's the largest equity climate action ETF where we were the anchor investors to the extent of $300 million. And this is just one example of what we as an asset owner and an asset manager can contribute. But I think the important part is, as we kind of think about building our businesses, how do we embed sustainability into everything that we do, right? From how we kind of, think about product design as to how we kind of bring those to serve customers. How do we kind of think about our servicing efforts to customers, so on and so forth. How do you build that philosophy into the 20,000 people that work for Prudential and the 500,000 agents that represent Prudential brand? I think is a significant opportunity.
Can I just take one step further back, because we're talking about your priorities at the moment, your strategies, your aims, your business, and it's all operating in an environment that's becoming a little bit more complex, a bit trickier, right? We're in an environment where there's persistent inflation, interest rates remain high around the world, except in China. You've also got issues around, geopolitical concerns with tensions between the 2 largest economies in the world. You've got a war going on in Ukraine, and you now have a conflict, a quite intense conflict in Israel and between Israel and Gaza as well. That's the environment you're operating in currently. How are you navigating that? What are you having to do differently, or how are you trying to navigate your business through that? And I'll start at the very end here.
Yeah, bring it on, right?
Yes.
It's like a perfect storm, and things are happening one after another. But that's a fun part about being in banking, because risk management is always in the forefront of that. Stress testing, making sure liquidity is sufficient, capital is ample, right? And scenarios are being done. So I think it's back to basic, right, of banking in looking at all those fundamentals. But having said that, we are here for the long term anyway, and we will continue to invest, right? We'll continue to invest. We will continue to invest in not just technology but people, etc. I personally would like to look at things on the glass half full, right? What are the potentials out there? Because if we are always thinking about problems, right, we can't move anywhere, right? And we are an enterprise with shareholders. We always have to be creative, I guess, in terms of what we're trying to do. If you look at Southeast Asia, for example, like Maybank, we are present in all 10 countries in Southeast Asia. And that, I think, is an advantage to us, right? Because in a way, it's diversification across all 10 countries in ASEAN. There are 660 million people in ASEAN, right? The affluent segment is still growing. Whilst there are so many challenges in the world, next year we're still expecting ASEAN 6 to grow 4.7%, from 4%. So there's still growth opportunities, right? So it's about picking the right segments, it's about looking at opportunities, glass half full, as we always continue to manage risk.
Okay, I'll take a quick pause and just remind everyone we've got about 5 minutes left. So if you have any questions, please send them through via the QR code and we'll take your questions. I don't see any so far. So I don't know if that means that we're answering all their questions in advance or if people need a bit more coffee this morning. But why don't we move on to you then, Anil. How are you navigating all these different sort of challenges that sometimes are beyond your control, really?
I would like to talk about inflation because I think that is something that is going to be with us for a little longer than what we would have hoped for. And higher for longer seems to be something that's top of mind for all of us. And I think I would like to start with the impact it has on our customers. Because when inflation impacts our customers, obviously the disposable income comes under focus. And for us, we have to do our part in manufacturing products and thinking about pricing more intentionally as to how we can make the products and services a lot more affordable. And again, Mary Ellen spoke about that as we drive penetration of insurance much deeper into societies in the markets of Greater China, ASEAN, India, and Africa. So I think that's something that consciously on our mind. However, when we think about consumer behavior, what we also notice is that customers don't start to think about retirement planning and about health and protection early in life. Because when you're young, you don't think about these things. And I would encourage our customers to start early. Even if you're starting small, doesn't matter. The compounding effect of starting early will have an impact on your retirement savings, will have an impact on the quantum of cover that you will have for you and your loved ones. And I would encourage our consumers, our customers, to start thinking about financial planning goals and think about their retirement as well as their health and protection needs much earlier in life so they are well prepared to deal with any eventuality.
So we do have a few questions coming in and just a couple minutes left. So I'm just going to zip through them very quickly. Let's see here. Here we go. The most popular one with 9 votes is this. Can you share specific examples of how the organization has embraced fintech partnerships to enhance its competitive position and improve the customer experience? So should we start with you, Mary Ellen, just very quickly, about 30 seconds?
It's completely changed the way we're doing business. Women's World Banking has always worked on a partnership model. Of our 68 partners, financial service providers, fully a third of them are fintechs. We're seeing really huge opportunities with data, to reach women with services that had just previously never been offered. The data wasn't available, the cost was too high. It's been a revolutionary change. Now, unfortunately, really lack of diversity in the fintech industry. So that's the other piece we're working on, is trying to drive greater gender diversity in fintech.
Okay. Dato?
Quick example is in our SME business. We, on the conventional way of doing business from giving loans, for example, we have always looked at a track record of at least 3 years in existence for a company before we can lend to them. We have partnered with a party outside in looking at using external data, so much so that we've come up with a model to be able to then be comfortable with then providing financing to even companies that have only been in existence for 1 year. Right? So, of course, we're still looking at the data in terms of testing, etc. So that's a specific example of how we have worked with FinTech to basically provide customer experience. Recently, we have also launched we partnered with property developers, to be able to link to their app with our app, so that, when a customer goes into their app, they can straight away apply a loan to us as well. right? And of course, we are going to connect with many, many other developers as well. And again, from a customer experience point of view, a single point of entry, ecosystem, yeah, simple, fast, and then they can get approval for their loan within 10 seconds.
Okay. Anil, an example of a fintech partnership?
Yeah, quick one, and a benefit of participating in the FinTech Festival. Two simple example. One is the partnership that we had with IDA to improve our claims experience. And second, the partnership with Underwrite Me to improve our underwriting processes. And both in terms of cycle time reduction, but also in terms of the impact it lends to customer experience.
Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through the other questions, but I do want to leave the audience with one final thought from each of you. It's always useful for audiences to kind of think, great, I've had a different perspective on how to look at the industry or my business, but also one action item that they can take away. So they've got about 30 seconds or 1 minute before the next speaker comes on stage. If they were to whip out their phones and send an email to someone, an action item from this discussion, who should they send the email to, and what should they say in that email to carry forward some action from what they've been listening to so far? Mary Ellen, shall I start with you? Ladies first.
Okay. Okay, so following on from the point I made just a few moments ago, fintech is a huge disruptive industry, but really not so much in terms of gender diversity. You're seeing very poor performance in terms of women as leaders, women and staff, women at the board level. So I'd say get out your phone and write to your HR manager, find out what your diversity statistics are, both in terms of your staff and your women customers, because we've got reams of data that shows if you want to grow your company, supercharge that growth, hire more women, have greater diversity amongst your staff, and if you want to have more women customers, hire more women.
Thank you. Great. All right, Anil, you're next.
I would encourage everyone to write an email to themselves. A lot of you in this room and outside this room are here to drive commercial outcomes, to offer your services, to consume the services that are available. And I would encourage you to write an email to yourself and ask yourself, what are you doing? 1, 2, 3 steps to improve sustainability. And we spoke about climate change, we spoke about inclusion, we spoke about the social impact. I would encourage you to pen down your thoughts as you drive your businesses and your commercial outcomes as to how you can be a significant contributor to sustainability.
Thank you.
Something similar to what Amil was saying, but maybe not to yourself. But many of us are bosses. Send an email to your employees, right, or your subordinates in saying, what can you do to help, not necessarily transition to green, but decarbonize first, right? Immediate steps to decarbonize. But maybe to add on another one, maybe again, I will be interested, for you, if you are a big organization, for example, send an email to your chief data officer to say that, how can you help me do my job better from using AI with the 3 objectives: simplification, personalization, democratization.
Okay, great. I see people using their phones at the moment, so that's fantastic. All right, thank you very much to our panelists, and thank you to the audience.